It was very interesting yesterday to understand the words and context, and especially the Madhurya Kadambini. So today we'll be studying a little bit more about the definitions of Madhurya Kadambini. I especially liked about those flickering determination in devotional service. Those were very, very relevant. Okay, let's start. We're studying from appendix 2. In Madhurya Kadambini, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains what it meant by the unwanted things in the heart being almost gone as follows. 1. What is troublesome to the heart? Anartha means unwanted desires in the heart, and nivritti means to cease. There are 4 kinds of anarthas. 1. Dushkritotta, anarthas coming from sinful activities. 2. Sukritotta, anarthas coming from pious deeds. 3. Aparadhota, anarthas coming from offenses. 4. Bhaktyutta, anarthas coming from devotional service. Oh, that's interesting. Earlier, we discussed the bad effects of material attachments, such as envy and anger. These causes of distress are born of sinful activities, dushkriti. The craving for temporary sensual pleasure is also a detrimental desire in the heart. An anartha stemming from sukriti, pious activities. Suffering comes from impious deeds, whereas pious deeds facilitate enjoyment of the senses. Okay, let's read that again. Suffering comes from impious deeds, whereas pious deeds facilitate enjoyment of the senses. That's why we are recommended to go beyond both of this, to not get bogged down by suffering or by enjoyment. Sukha dukkha same kritva labha labho jaya jayo, Krishna says in the Gita. Do not get stuck. Some scholars say that Sukritotta anarthas are part of the 5 causes of distress: envy, pride, anger, ignorance, and attachment. Word shower pages. Okay, somebody likes to read number 2, stages of removal.
I start reading. Hare Krishna. Stages of removal of the above anarthas. Now we shall take further on the anarthas, unwanted desires that crop up in the execution of devotional service. Unwanted desires tend to smoother the natural growth of the creeper of bhakti.
Stages of removal of the above anarthas. Now, we shall talk further on the anarthas, unwanted desires that crop up in execution of devotional service. Unwanted desires tend to smother the natural growth of the creeper of bhakti. At first glance, unwanted desires look like offshoots from the bhakti lata, the creeper of devotion. But in reality, they are mundane desires for position, adoration, and opulence. They color and taint the practitioner's consciousness. Thriving in this way, these anarthas arrest the growth of the creeper of devotional service. The 4 anarthas mentioned in the beginning of this chapter can be mitigated in the 5 following ways. 1. Eka Disha Vartini, partially, to Bahudesha Vartini, substantially, Prayiki, almost completely, Purna, completely, Atyantiki, absolutely, thoroughly. The many anarthas stemming from aparadhas are partially destroyed in the first stage of bhajana kriya, rendering devotional service under the guidance of a spiritual master. This is known as Ekadeshavartini. When bhajana kriya gains maturity and turns to nishta or steadiness in devotional activities. In this stage of development, the mitigation of anarthas is substantial. Bahudeshavartini. Therefore, on the platform of rati, attraction, the unwanted desires in the heart are almost completely absolved. Praiki. With the first awakening of prema or divine love, these anarthas are completely removed. Purna. Finally, the anarthas are totally uprooted. Atyantiki. When the devotee receives the mercy and shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. Summary of the above by the authors. There are 4 categories of unwanted desires in the heart of the aspiring devotee. These are as follows. 1. Unwanted desires generated by our past sinful activities. 2. Unwanted desires generated by our past pious activities. 3. Unwanted desires generated by our offenses. And 4. Unwanted desires generated by performing bhakti, sadhana bhakti. When one becomes steady in his devotional practices, all these unwanted desires are substantially cleared. Very interesting. So let us pause here and maybe look into the mind's eye to see what kinds of unwanted desires do we have. We can call it unwanted desires. We can call it meaningless hopes is also anartha. Anartha. Artha means meaningful, meaning. Anartha means something meaningless. Meaningless character defects means those defects which are not meaningful in our progress of devotional service. Unwanted desires means they're not going to serve the purpose. They're just going to keep us bound to this world. So the purpose of the existence is to unbind ourselves, to liberate ourselves. And yesterday I was with Savitri Mataji, and she kept saying about Krishna has lost us, and he's trying to find us. And then we need, I made a podcast about it. I'll post it later in the group. You can listen to it. So the whole point is like Krishna has lost us. And these anarthas are keeping us from Krishna finding us. Okay, so this is covering us that Krishna is unable to like just get us. Krishna is trying. All 18 chapters of Gita is his effort to find us. And Srimad Bhagavatam is an effort to find us. And what is stopping us from Krishna finding us are these anarthas. So we can let it go. Krishna, please remove all my character defects, whatever is blocking me from my connection to you. Any questions, any comments? Any volunteers to read Appendix 3?
This verse describes the 9 stages of advancement from initial faith in Krishna.
Okay, I'm going to continue.
Oh, you're not able to hear
Appendix
me?
3. These verses
Hello?
describe the 9 stages of advancement from initial faith in Krishna to the awakening of divine love. The 9 stages are summarized by Rupa Goswami in the following stanza. Adhau Shraddha Tatau Sadhu Sango Tata Bhajana Kriyato Anartha Nivritti Syat Tato Nishta Bhavastata Prema Bhudyanchati Sadakanam Ayam Premana Pradhur Bhave Bhavet Krama. In the beginning, there must be faith. Then one becomes interested in associating with pure devotees. Thereafter, one is initiated by the spiritual master and executes the regulative principles under his orders. Thus, one is freed from all unwanted habits and becomes firmly fixed in devotional service. Therefore, one develops taste and attachment. This is the way of sadhana bhakti, the execution of devotional service according to the regulative principles. Gradually, emotions intensify, and finally, there is an awakening of love. This is the gradual development of the love of Godhead for the devotees interested in Krishna consciousness. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 23:14-15. No, Vilas Manjari, I couldn't. Maybe I'm not able to. Vilas
Hare
Manjari?
Krishna.
Yes,
Yeah.
now-
Can you
yes.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Srila
we'll
Prabhupada,
go.
Srila Prabhupada explains these stages as follows. The first stage is Shraddha, a little faith. Just like our students are going in the marketplace, they're chanting, and many people are contributing. Some money. Somebody is purchasing our back to Godhead. This is the beginning of faith. Oh, here is a nice moment. Let me cooperate. Adav Shraddha. Then, if he becomes little more interested, then he comes here into the class. All right, let us see what these people are teaching, this Krishna consciousness. So they come. So that is the second stage. The first stage is automatic sympathy for this moment. The second stage is joining or associating with this, our activities. Just like you have kindly come here, you are hearing me. Similarly, if somebody becomes more interested or his faith is still further advanced, then he comes. That is the second stage. And the third stage is Adav Shraddha, Tata Sadhu Sangha, Tata Bhajana Kriya. CC Madhya 23.14. In the beginning, there must be faith. Then one becomes interested in associating with pure devotees, Sadhu Sangha. Thereafter, one is initiated by the spiritual master and executes the regulative principles under his orders. Thus, one is freed from all unwanted habits and becomes firmly fixed in devotional service. Thereafter, one develops taste and attachment. This is the way of sadhana bhakti, the execution of devotional service according to the regulative principles. Gradually, emotions intensify, and finally, there is an awakening of love. This is the gradual development of love of Godhead for the devotee interested in Krishna consciousness. Now, the initiation means beginning of the activities. How one can develop Krishna consciousness to the perfectional stage, that is called initiation. It is not that initiation means finished. It is the third stage. Then the fourth stage will be one who is initiated. If he follows the rules and regulation, and if he chants Hare Krishna with a fixed up counting, then gradually his all misgivings will vanish. What are the misgivings? We ask our students to refrain from that illicit sex life, non-vegetarian diet, and intoxication, and to take part in gambling. These four things. So ordinarily, these four things are very prominent in the society, especially in the Western countries. But these students who take initiation and follow chanting, they very easily give up these four things without any difficulty. That is called anartha nivritti. That is the fourth stage. The fifth stage is then he becomes fixed up. Yes, just like one student, Mr. Anderson, I have not seen him. But simply by associating with our other devotees, he has written that I wish to devote my whole being for this Krishna consciousness. This is called Nishta, fixed up. Tato Nishta, Tato Ruchi. Ruchi means they get a taste. Why these boys are going out? This chanting, they have got a taste. They have developed a taste. Otherwise, for nothing, they are not wasting time. They are educated, they are grown up. So taste. Fixed up, then taste, tata asaktis. When the taste is, then attachment. He cannot give it up. And I receive so many letters. Some students, they could not cope with their god brothers. They go away. But they will write that I cannot go. I cannot go. He's captured, you see. Umapati has written that letter that he becomes in difficulty. He cannot leave. He cannot leave or leave. He cannot leave or leave. He's in the last, you see. He cannot quit the company or some misunderstanding. He cannot live with God brothers, but that is temporary. So that is called asakti.
Yeah, I was thinking how Savitri is also a person that she cannot be without studying Gita. She's so like fixed up. She's got that attachment. She's got that taste, and she got the attachment. She cannot give it up. So yesterday we were discussing that in the middle of the night, if you wake her up and say, "What does Krishna say? What's the last verse of the Gita?" and then she'll immediately start saying, "Sarva dharma parityaja." So that's called attachment. When we are woken up in the middle of the night, what will we say? That's a question. Please continue. Finish this.
Attachment. Tata saktis tato bhava. Then gradually increasing some ecstatic position, always thinking of Krishna. And then perfectional stage that he loves Krishna's cent%. So this is the process. Lecture and initiation, October 20, 1968, Seattle.
Wow. Thank you. Okay, let's continue. Appendix 4. Would you like to continue, Vilas Manjari?
Appendix 4, chapter structure. Chapter 1 to 3, setting the scene, Sutta and Shaunaka. Chapter 4, Vasudeva's vision, Sutta to Shaunaka. Brilliant as the sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, the sages of Naimisharanya. Conversation between Vasudeva and Narada, Narada's story, Sutta to Shaunaka, Narada to Vasudeva, Sutta to Shaunaka. Chapter 6, Narada's history continued, conversation between Vasudeva to Narada, Sutta to Shaunaka. Narada and Vasudeva, Sutta and Shaunaka, Sutta to Shaunaka. Chapter 7, Sutta and Shaunaka, Vasudeva's epiphany about the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sutta to Shaunaka. Chapter 8, History of Pandavas after the Great War. History of Pandavas continued. Yudhishthira's lament, Sutta and Shaunaka. Chapter 9, the Pandavas and Krishna visit Bhishma on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Chapter 10, Sutta and Shaunaka. History of Krishna's departure from Hastinapura. Chapter 11, Krishna's arrival in Dwaraka. Chapter 12, Krishna saves Parikshit in the womb. Chapter 13, Vidura returns to Hastinapura and convinces Dhritarashtra to retire. Narada consoles Yudhishthira. Chapter 14, Arjuna returns from Dwaraka. I think we did till here, right? Narada consoles. Yeah. Chapter 14, Arjuna returns from Dwaraka. Chapter 15, Arjuna tells his brothers about the departure of the Yadus and Krishna. Chapter 16, History of Parikshit's tour of his empire, includes a conversation between Dharma and Bhumi.
All this we did.
Chapter 17, yes. History of Parikshit's encounter with Kali, includes a conversation between Parikshit and Dharma. Chapter 18, Parikshit is cursed to die in 7 days. Chapter 19, Parikshit renounces his kingdom and meets his spiritual master Shukadeva. Yeah. We did till there.
Yeah, we covered till there. Let's see what else is here. Notes. Okay, let's read this. These are very basic philosophical points. This is Srila Prabhupada from Lectures of Srila Prabhupada. Anybody likes to continue?
Yes, I'll read. Srimad Bhagavatam, translated by Srila Prabhupada. Bhagavad Gita, as it is translated by Srila Prabhupada. The goal of life in the material world, Generally, religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Dharma, Arth, Kam, Moksha, Srila Prabhupada's lecture, March 12, 1975, London. The fruitative workers, the salvationists, and also the yogis who are after mystic powers are all unhappy because of unfulfilled desires. Bhagavad Gita 2.70 purport. Note, there are different kinds of activities, karma, jnana, yoga, specially everything. All activities are grouped under three headings. Lecture on Bhagavad Gita 4.3942. January 14, 1969, Los Angeles.
Jai.
The principles of Bhakti Yoga, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pad Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam, Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.23 are the only means by which perfection can be attained. Simply by hearing of the glories of the Lord, one is elevated to the transcendental position. SP 4.293940. Occupational duties are known as Varnashrama Dharma and apply to the four divisions of material and spiritual life, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanprastha, and Sannyasa. 4.20.9 purport Varnashrama Dharma is called Dharma. Lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam 7.6.4 December 5, 1975 Vrindavan. The word dharma means duty. Although the word dharma is often translated as religion, and religion is generally defined as a kind of faith, dharma is not in fact a kind of faith. Dharma means one's actual constitutional duty. It is one's duty to know the needs of the soul. But unfortunately, we have no information of the soul and are simply busy supplying the necessities for bodily comfort. Teachings of Queen Kunti note, one has therefore to learn from Krishna directly or from a pure devotee of Krishna, and not from a non-devotee, upstart, puffed up with academic education. Bhagavad Gita 7.1 purport. 6. As one associates with pure devotees and hears from submissively, attachment for material enjoyment slackens, and attraction for hearing about the transcendental activities of the Lord becomes prominent. Once this attraction begins, it goes on progressively increasing without stoppage, like fire in gunpowder. Srimad Bhagavatam, like 1.10, 11, 12 purport. The purpose of Dharma, Arth, Kam, Moksha means to come to this platform of bhakti. The Bhagavata says that the occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. SB 128. The purpose of Dharma, Arth, Kam is to come to the platform of bhakti. If one does not come to that platform simply as a matter of formula and rituals, the Bhagavad says it is simply waste of time. Lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam 7.9.9, July 6, 1968, Montreal. 8. Oneness with the impersonal Brahm Jyoti is not ultimate liberation. Superior to that is the sublime association of the subpersonality of Godhead in one of the innumerable spiritual planets in the Vaikuntha sky. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.5.16 purport. Any person who desires the fruits of the four principles religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and at the end, liberation, should engage himself in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for worship of his lotus field yields the fulfillment of all these. SB 4.8.41 verse. By following the principles of Varnashram Dharma, one attains a better position in the material world. One may be rich, learned, beautiful, or high-born. One who has all these assets should know that they are all meant for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. Unfortunately, when a person is misguided, he misuses his high position for sense gratification. Therefore, the uncontrolled senses are considered plunderers. The good position one attains by executing religious principles is waste as the plundering senses take it away. By executing religious principles under the laws of Varnashram Dharma, one is placed in a comfortable position. One may very easily use his assets for the further advancement of Krishna consciousness. One should understand that the wealth and opportunity one gets in the material world should not be squandered in the sense gratification. They are meant for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. SB 5.14.2 purport. Lord Brahma said, "My dear Lord, those devotees who have thrown away the impersonal conception of the absolute truth and have therefore abandoned discussing empiric philosophical truths should hear from self-realized devotees about your holy name, form, pastimes, and qualities." Chaitanya Charitamrit Madhya Leela 8.67 verse. Lord Brahma said, "My dear Lord, those devotees who have thrown away the impersonal conception of absolute truth and have therefore abandoned discussing empiric philosophical truths should hear from self-realized devotees about your holy name, form, pastimes, and qualities." Chaitanya Charitamrit Madhya Leela 8.67 verse. Prema Bhakti is the stage of spontaneous love of Godhead, whereas Sadhana Bhakti means the conscientious practice of the regulative principles of devotional service. SB 11.7.11 purport. If one reads Bhagavad Gita very sincerely and with all seriousness, then by the grace of the Lord, the reaction of his past misdeeds will not act upon him. Gita Mahatmya, the Lord God. What is this? What? Something has come in between.
The Lord says very loudly in the last portion of Bhagavad Gita, 1866, "Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear." Thus, the Lord takes all responsibility for one who surrenders unto him, and he indemnifies such a person against all reactions of sins. Bhagavad Gita as it is, introduction. 15. Thus, Narottam Das Thakur says, "Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Payeche Keba." Without serving a pure devotee, one cannot advance in spiritual life. One should take shelter of a pure devotee who has nothing to do with this material world, but is simply engaged in devotional service. By serving him only, one can transcend the qualitative material condition. In this verse, it is recommended Yogeshwara Upasanaya, that one serve the lotus feet of the topmost yogi or the devotee. To serve the topmost devotee means to hear from him about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the mouth of a pure devotee is to acquire a pious life. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.22.22 purport. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Madhurya Kadambini, verse 17 describes unsteady devotional service, and verse 18 describes steady devotional service. Shrinvantam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridyantastohya bhadrani vidhunati suhritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotees, cleanses desire for the material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages. which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead who is praised with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. The Supreme Lord is the greatest benefactor of the pure devotees, the saintly sadhus. Therefore, the only way to receive the Lord's mercy is to first receive the grace of the pure devotee. The first verse quoted previously describes the unsteady bhajana kriya stage of devotional service. The second verse, 1 to 18, describes naishtiki bhakti, or steady devotional service, also known as nishta stage. In describing the two stages of bhakti, both the verses mention destroying inauspicious things in the heart, of purifying the heart of unwanted material desires. The second verse quoted suits that the impurities are almost completely destroyed, meaning that some residue of impurity is still there in the heart. Madhurya Kadambini, the fourth shower of nectar. 70. When Naishtiki Bhakti blossoms in the devotee's consciousness, the immediate effect is that he is no longer ruled by anger, greed, or any other influences from the modes of passion and ignorance. The Naishtiki Bhakta becomes firmly fixed on the Supreme Lord, who is always situated in pure goodness and experiences divine bliss. The Srimad Bhagavatam 1 to 19 confirms this. Tata rajastamo bhava kamalobhadayaschaye cheta etairana viddham stitam sattve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness, and he becomes completely happy. Okay, should we continue? Tomorrow, I want to do some verses, some beautiful Sanskrit verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. And either we could continue, let's see how many more pages we have. 66, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's only 3 pages more. Let's complete this. Yeah. Somebody likes to read?
In this verse, the Sanskrit word cha and conveys the presence of passion and ignorance in the heart of the devotee. While in the same verse, the expression cheta etair anavritam, that the mind is unaffected by these, establishes that these material modes are not obstacles on the path of devotion, but reside in the heart in a neutral state until the devotee on the platform of steady devotional service attains bhava. Bhava is a stage of spontaneous loving devotion to the Lord. This means that by lack of taste for material objects, the state of ruchi, the appearance of relishing, of hearing, chanting, and other processes arises. In the previous state, the mind was pierced by the sharp arrow of lust and greed, etc. How could the mind be satisfied in that state? How could the mind attain a real taste for chanting? In that state, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.19. After this, the mind becomes fixed, thitam, in the Shuddha Sattva deity of the Lord Sattve. This is stage of Asakti, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.19. In the seed of affection, there is attachment which goes by 2 names, Rati and Bhava, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.165. Then the mind becomes joyful and satisfied on attaining Rati. Finally, Prema develops, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.20. With the first awakening of prema or divine love, these anarthas are completely removed. Purna. Finally, the anarthas are totally uprooted. Atyanti ki, when the devotee receives the mercy and shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Next page, please.
Can you see?
Madhurya Kadami, third shower. In connection with the Virat Rupa being imaginary, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in his commentary on this verse 1.3.30 that the conditioned soul's material bodies are also imaginary. In the same way, we therefore understand that the Virat Rupa is a real material form, not just a convention applied to the planets. Srila Prabhupada also explains in the purport how it is imaginary. As Paramatma or Supersoul, the Lord is within each and every material form, even within the atoms, but the outward material form is but an imagination, but both for the Lord and for the living being. The present forms of the conditioned souls are also not factual. The conclusion is that the material conception of the body of the Lord as Virat is imaginary. Both the Lord and the living beings are living spirits and have original spiritual bodies. Tattva Sandarbha by Jiva Goswami. Wearing a peacock feather ornament upon his head, blue karnikara flowers on his ears, a yellow garment as brilliant as gold, and its divine Vaijayanti garland, Lord Krishna exhibited his transcendental form as the greatest dancer as he entered the forest of Vrindavana. Beautifying it with his footprints, he filled the holes of his flute with the nectar of his lips, and the cowherd boys sang his glory, Srimad Bhagavatam 10.21.5. Additional details of this and other episodes concerning the Pandavas are taken from Mahabharata, the greatest spiritual epic of all time by Krishna Dharma. The subject matter which attracts the dying man becomes the beginning of his next life. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.9.30 purport by Srila Prabhupada. The eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification of a devotee eligible for entering the kingdom of God. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.16 purport by Srila Prabhupada. Negative Devotion, Chapter 22, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, and Bhagavad Gita.
Hi, thank you and congratulations to everybody for completing the first canto in this Krishna Connection group. Tomorrow, I will be sending you like a list of verses that we would read. We will just go over the beautiful nectar verses and then a translation also. I'll send you that file and just go over it. For those of you who are shloka addicts like me, you will enjoy the just the connection, and then tomorrow you will be like prepared to sing those verses. We can all sing those verses together. And then I was thinking that we should read at least one verse a day together so that we keep in touch with that Sanskrit root and the meaning, and we can enjoy it. Like today we read some of those verses, they were beautiful. All right, any questions? I mean, this rich part, right? This is very rich part where we are reading Prabhupada's lecture purports and we are reading some very interesting definitions, which gives us perspective. You know, we are so fortunate. We're so fortunate to be belonging to this sampradaya, to this parampara, which is giving us such broad understanding of Krishna consciousness. Sometimes our own conditioning blocks us from understanding how huge Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement is. And, you know, I often say, your biggest service is to get out of the way so that people can accept Krishna consciousness. Sometimes we force people to understand Krishna consciousness the way we want them to. We want people to perform sadhana, the way we do it. But my dear Vaishnavis, as an occupational hazard as well, as Prabhupada was describing there, I studied about personality types. I studied about different natures. So we all have different natures. We all belong to different kind of influences of planets. Even the Lord, we all come from the, the Lord himself has different characteristics and personalities. He has his Dhirodhatta, Dhira Prashanta, Dhira Lalita, and Dhirodhatta. So Krishna himself has different personalities, and from him originates our different natures. So devotional service is not like black and white, and it's not exactly performed the same way for everybody. Some people have more taste for reading. Some people have more taste for bhajans. Some people have more taste for chanting. Some people have more taste in the Sangha of devotees and performing practical devotional service. And we all need to recognize that, not like, kirtan. Some people can dance in the kirtan for 3 hours every single day and they feel energized. Some other people, that's not their cup of milk. They need to study. They need to engage their minds. The mind is more important for some people because they are more intellectual in nature. So we all have different natures that we need to keep in mind, that we don't need to become like a sheep in a group of sheeps. You have to do this. Everybody has to do it exactly in this way. So that's actually the beauty of Krishna consciousness. And you can see how Krishna Dharma Prabhu has rewritten this Srimad Bhagavatam beautifully, like very artistically. It becomes so pleasant for the mind to read. I mean, I was thinking how sometimes among Indian devotees, things are so political, things are so hierarchical. But whereas like some other people who are born and brought up in a culture of education which helps you to think, okay? You're not told what to think. Indian culture, Indian education system, Indian upbringing, Indian authority system is, we are taught what to think. You should think like this. This is what Prabhupada means. And we are taught what to think. But the beauty of our Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, the beauty of even the capacity for a lot of Western devotees have in the Western education system is they teach you how to think. They're not told this is what you're supposed to think. We are taught, oh my God, this is the principle. Rupa Goswami is saying this. Then we come up like Krishna Dharma Prabhu. Some people are writers who write the scriptures in that way. In some other people, we may create support groups. Some of us, we may create groups to do dramas for Krishna. So we need to be given the freedom to exercise and express our nature. And that is Krishna consciousness. So please don't get constipated by certain Indian rules of the game. Be free, grow completely, fully, grow into this Krishna consciousness. Like that, who was that professor? Prabhupada was saying, that person has so much nishta. He's so fixed up that he wants to dedicate fully his life to Krishna. Dedicate fully means all your capacities, all your natures. We don't only keep following, we also start leading, my friends. So I recommend highly to all of you to also think of starting a small reading group, starting a small group where you are taking responsibility to give people that opportunity to grow. It be of service. That's why we have these outreach groups and reading groups where you can take responsibility. And I wanted to say that I also want to do the shloka, the mantras for the marriage thing, the Srinivasa Kalyana and the Sita Kalyana. I want to start that every week so that you can learn it. They are a little complicated. I can send you the text, but it's good if we come together and learn it, especially for those unmarried girls, also married women, that we can get the strength to be good wives. We'll do that, okay? But I will also send that text to Ashka had asked me, so I will send it to you. But let us do this, okay? Let us do this.
Okay.
I started some I have like 30 Matajis coming here in Russian Matajis to my house. So I've started doing programs at home. I'm thinking to do also shloka classes at home. So like that, if you have any ideas for how you can do some service online. So let us enjoy this Krishna consciousness with our full capacity and grow and develop ourselves to the best version of ourselves that Krishna will be very proud of. So thank you and congratulations again for completing this canto. Tomorrow we will do the verses, and then the day after tomorrow we'll start the second canto.